Hello and welcome to our brand new show, Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you the stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Russia has launched a new barrage of missiles and drones at Ukraine, targeting its gas infrastructure and energy facilities in the western regions. Powerful winds prolong the battle for firefighters in Los Angeles as the death toll mounts to 25. More than 6 million remain under critical fire threat across Southern California. A U.S. financial regulator sues Elon Musk for allegedly failing to disclose his ownership of Twitter stock and later acquiring shares in the company at artificially low prices. Italy, Albania and the United Arab Emirates sign a deal worth at least $1 billion to build a subsea interconnection for renewable energy across the Adriatic Sea. And Daniel Chapo takes oath as Mozambique's new president amid a political fight over the disputed election results. The opposition leader, Mondlane, calls for a nationwide strike. Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Now, after a surge in the 2024 tech layoffs, they return in 2025. The industry has kicked off the new year with significant layoffs after Microsoft. It is now Meta. Mark Zuckerberg is cutting back on the Meta headcount. The Facebook and Instagram parent company is set to cut its global workforce by 5%. That's around 3,600 employees. The company is looking to drop low performers faster. In a memo to staff, Zuckerberg said that he has made the decision to speed up the company's regular performance-based cuts in anticipation of an intense year. Meta, which employs about 72,000 people globally, did not say how the cuts would be distributed around the world. The move comes on the heels of other big decisions by Zuckerberg in recent days, including moves to end the company's fact-checking and diversity programs. The last major cuts at Meta came in 2023 when Zuckerberg declared it the year of efficiency. The company had cut about 10,000 positions. This was a part of a cost-cutting drive in 2022. Meta had cut about 11,000 roles. Performance-based job cuts have become a common phenomenon in corporate America. Last week, Microsoft also announced performance-based layoffs. It said that the cuts would affect less than 1% of its global workforce of 228,000 employees. The company said its focus on high-performance talent was driving these actions. In 2023, Microsoft cut around 10,000 jobs, representing about 5% of its workforce. In 2024, Microsoft dismissed nearly 200 employees from its gaming division. Tech industry worldwide has been experiencing significant downsizing since 2023. The tech giants are prioritizing efficiency and performance amid economic pressures. The layoff wave continued through 2024, and reports say the year saw more than 150,000 job cuts across 545 companies. In 2023, around 1,200 tech companies laid off over 264,000 employees. In 2022, around 1,000 tech companies laid off over 165,000 employees. Tesla, Amazon, Google, TikTok, Snapchat, and Microsoft were among those with sizable layoffs in 2024. Intel and Cisco were also among the top ones. Smaller startups also experienced cuts, while some saw a shutdown. But why are these layoffs happening? Well, there are multiple factors that together have created the perfect storm for the current wave of layoffs. The first is inflation and higher interest rates. Tech companies have been forced to scale back on their growth investments and hiring as they divert cash to cover debt obligations from rising inflation rates and Fed hikes. The impact of these rates has been severe for tech firms that borrowed heavily during a decade of near zero interest rates. Now, the second is economic downturn and recession fears. The US economy remains on shaky ground, further complicated by the return of Donald Trump. Recession fears have been fueled by government debt concerns, geopolitical tensions in Ukraine and West Asia, and the lingering effects of the pandemic. The third is artificial intelligence factor. AI is creating both opportunities and threats. While it promises to create new jobs, it also probes high risk to those who fail to adapt. Now, the fourth is overhiring during the pandemic. Many firms like Meta nearly doubled their workforce during the pandemic, only to find themselves overstaffed as the world reopened. During the pandemic, tech companies were driven by the belief that the surge in digital demand would be permanent. Now these companies are urgently correcting course. Significant layoffs in the tech sector in the US also have an impact on the Indian H-1B visa holders. With stricter visa regulations and soaring application fee, these workers are starting to stare at a precarious situation and are facing mounting challenges. A World Economic Forum report called The Future of Jobs has also made doomsday predictions. The report, which is released every year, says that by the year 2030, 41% of employers will downsize their workforce, and 92 million jobs will be lost across the world. As we navigate these challenges, there are several crucial questions about the future of tech jobs. Can upskilling help you save your job? Will the tech industry return to its previous growth trajectory? Can the companies better support their employees in these turbulent times? Now, for more on this, we have with us economist and geopolitical strategist Mark Brodie, who is joining us live from London. Welcome to Firstpost.
Thank you.
Now, Mark, what are the main factors that are driving the resurgence of tech layoffs, particularly at the major companies like Microsoft and Meta? And how do these compare to previous years?
Well, I think compared to previous years, it's still a hefty number, but it's less than during the correction following the pandemic you mentioned before. And I think you mentioned already many of the sort of short-term cycle factors like inflation, interest rates, overhiring following the pandemic. And we also have a few long-term, quite interesting business cycle changes, which are, I think we can talk about two big ones, economic ones, and two political ones. The first one is that these companies, especially the ones you mentioned, like Meta and Microsoft, they are entering a new phase. You could call it a more mature phase, where you're prioritizing profitability over growth. They have been expanding for so many years, and the investors, shareholders, haven't been so interested in recapturing the money so far. But now they are facing pressure to actually to give back to shareholders. So they have to do these performance checks. So that's one factor, which I think is quite important. Another second factor, you also touched upon this or talked about it quite a bit, is that what's happening now is reflecting a natural shift, and top talent is much more in demand, and some of AI is actually automizing some of the coding jobs, for example. So as some jobs are lost, others will be created. So I think that's one. And then we have the political thing. And Mark, I think we're entering now with the Trump administration, we're entering a performance era. Musk and Douche, the Department of Government Efficiency, I think they are the symbols of all this. And I think this is also reflected in what's happening. You couldn't use some of the words that Mark Zuckerberg is using, for example, performance-related and weeding out the poor performance. That's not that kind of language hasn't been used as much during the Biden years. But now we are going to see much more those kind of terms. So that's one political factor. And I think that the fourth and factor in this respect is that the timing of all this. Many are now trying to score points with the Trump administration, and the layoffs are happening right before he comes in, and he would probably feel insulted if they start layoffs after he is installed. So they do it right before that, so to avoid that insult.
Right. Right, and Mark, how might these layoffs impact the Indian tech workforce in the US, many of whom are on the H-1B visas? And what options do they have in terms of navigating the visa challenges if they lose their jobs?
Well, it might be tricky since, again, Trump, his administration have been saying that they're going to prioritize jobs for Americans. But there is a grace period for 60 days, and if you can find a job within that grace period, then you're fine. And you also have some sort of, there is loopholes, and you can in special circumstances get extensions, and you can change visa status, so you can get student visa, tourist visa, things like that. But I mean, if you're laid off and having that visa status, it will be. I mean, it will be uncertainty, certainly.
And given the current trends, do you see this as a short-term correction in the tech industry, or could this indicate deeper structural issues? How might these layoffs reshape the global tech talent ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's an area we're going to discuss a lot over the coming years. I think what's happening now is just the start of a continuous evolvement within the AI industry. It's shape-shifting so much, and nobody really will really know what's going to happen. So I think we will. You mentioned the figure before: 92 million jobs will be lost, and that might be right. The people coming up with that figure, but I think many other jobs will be coming into play, will be created. So I think that there's a shape-shifting. It might be a good one in many ways because many people will have more interesting jobs, and the pros and cons are sort of uncertain. But I think we will absolutely see continuous involvement for years to come.
Thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost and for sharing your valued insights.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Now shifting focus to the world of cryptocurrency, while India's biggest crypto exchange platform recovers from a security breach, reports now say that North Korea was behind the massive hacking attempt. US, Japan and South Korea say the North Korean state and a group named Lazarus was behind the July 2024 hack. This attack on India's WazirX crypto exchange firm led to the loss of $235 million. In a statement, US, Japan and South Korea said the North Korean hacking group stole cryptocurrencies worth $659 million in 2024. The statement also alleged that the stolen crypto funds are being used to fund North Korea's ballistic missile program. The three nations added that efforts are underway to recover the stolen crypto funds as the North Korean hackers continue to threaten the international financial system. Reacting to the North Korean hand behind the $235 million hack, WazirX CEO has said that he is praying for the recovery of the stolen funds. Last year's crypto hack on WazirX remains unprecedented in its sheer scale and impact. In July of 2024, Indian crypto exchange platform WazirX faced a massive cyber attack. The cyber attack resulted in the losses with $235 million belonging to at least 15 million investors. In response, WazirX briefly froze crypto withdrawals and suspended trading on the platform. The platform also announced a prize of $23 million to help recover the stolen assets. Now, reports said that the FBI reached out to WazirX in July, and this to analyze the cyber attack. Crypto platforms operating in India are required to follow anti-money laundering and anti-terror financing guidelines. Cryptocurrencies are not recognized as legal tender in the world's fifth largest economy. But Indian investors, even the ones with crypto holdings, still have certain rights that can be enforced. Under Indian contract or consumer laws, investors can enforce contractual rights in Indian courts. Investors can also seek remedies if their data is compromised, and they can also challenge actions for violation of privacy principles. Now, even as at least 15 million investors of Indian crypto platform reel under the impact of their money lost to the North Korean hackers, Pyongyang's cyber hacking techniques continue to threaten the global financial system. Now, the accusation that stolen money from crypto funds is funding North Korean weapons program is even more startling. The need for strengthening the safety net of crypto assets can be felt across the world. But until the safety net comes along, the question remains, are North Korean hackers racing ahead of the global crypto protection techniques to commit crypto theft? Meanwhile, in South Korea's capital Seoul, unprecedented scenes of chaos unfolded as impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol was finally arrested. The South Korean leader is being investigated on charges of insurrection for briefly imposing martial law last month. This is for the first time in South Korean history when a serving president has been arrested. High drama ensued in the South Korean capital as investigators executed the arrest warrant against Yoon Suk-yeol. The South Korean investigators came armed with ladders to bypass bus barricades that were erected by Yoon supporters outside of the presidential residence in Seoul. Other members of the team scaled walls and cut barbed wire in a bid to enter the presidential residence. Meanwhile, around 3,000 police personnel were stationed outside Yoon's residence to facilitate the arrest. The massive law enforcement operation also saw police dispersing the rival groups of protesters, with one group supporting Yoon's arrest and the other opposing the action against the impeached president. The pro-Yoon protesters were also seen scuffling with police personnel as investigators moved inside the presidential residence to arrest the president. After several hours of effort, authorities announced that President Yoon had been arrested. In a video released just before his arrest, the impeached South Korean leader said that he would comply with the investigation. Yoon still maintains that the warrant for his arrest is not legally valid.
Today, I witnessed them forcibly breaching a secured zone using firefighting equipment. To prevent any unfortunate incidents or bloodshed, I have decided to comply with the summons by the Corruption Investigation Office, despite their investigation being illegal. However, I am not acknowledging the CIO's investigation.
Following his arrest, the Korean leader was taken to the headquarters of the country's anti-corruption agency. Outside the agency's headquarters, pro-Yoon supporters gathered to express their support for the leader. The demonstrators waved the flags of the United States and South Korea and called for impeached leaders' immediate release. Yoon's arrest has ended a weeks-long standoff between the investigators and the presidential security team who were stationed at his Seoul residence. The investigators previously attempted to arrest Yoon on the 3rd of January, but remained unsuccessful. The impeached president and his allies are grappling with the fallout of his martial law declaration. On the 3rd of December, as president, Yoon Suk-yeol imposed martial law in the country, citing threats from North Korea. The law was lifted shortly after, following parliamentary intervention. Yoon was suspended from presidency after a successful impeachment vote on the 14th of December, but his removal from office is subject to a verdict by the Constitutional Court. Until the Constitutional Court's verdict, Yoon Suk-yeol still technically remains South Korea's president. Yoon is later expected to be held in a solitary cell at the Seoul Detention Center, where on the menu tonight he was said to be served with bean sprout soup, barbecue beef and kimchi. Authorities have until the 17th of January to question Yoon, after which they must either release the leader or seek a warrant to detain him for up to 20 days. The political firestorm in South Korea, unleashed by President Yoon's short-lived martial law decision, continues to test Seoul's democratic resilience. The impeached leader's arrest has intensified this firestorm even further. The question remains, can South Korean democracy emerge unscathed out of this crisis? And our next story is about catfishing reaching a new peak. The glittering world of Hollywood fandom met the murky depths of internet scams when a French woman, dazzled by what she thought was Brad Pitt's charm, handed over more than $1 million. Yes, a scammer posed as the heartthrob and swept her off her digital feet, proving once again that love, or its illusion, can sometimes be ridiculously expensive. Meet Anne, a 53-year-old French woman who, in the midst of her divorce from a millionaire, was approached online by someone claiming to be Brad Pitt in February of 2023. It all began innocently enough during a ski trip to Tignes. Now, first, a message arrived from an account claiming to be Pitt's mother, Jane Etta Pitt, and just like a perfectly scripted rom-com minus the comedy, Brad slid into her DMs the very next day. Now, the digital relationship quickly took off. It was fueled by poems and flowery declarations of love. Anne, who described herself as starved for affection, fell for the scammer's artful words. There are so few men who write such things, Anne said in an interview. The French woman was totally convinced that she is in a long-distance relationship with the Hollywood legend. But while the fake Pitt knew how to woo, he also knew how to exploit. The scammer never picked up Anne's calls. Hollywood actors are busy, right? Instead, he sent her AI-generated videos and photos to maintain the illusion. By the time Anne finalized her divorce and pocketed $800,000, the scammer had ramped up his tactics. He promised luxury gifts for which Anne herself sent $9,000. He needed that money to cover the customs fees. But the delivery boy never knocked on her door with the gifts. He didn't stop there and even dangled the prospect of marriage. Now, things took a dramatic turn when Brad claimed that he needed money for a kidney operation. His bank accounts had conveniently been frozen due to his messy divorce with Angelina Jolie. Now, the scammer sent her videos in which he was seen lying on a hospital bed. Anne's heart melted and she shelled out more money to help her lover in distress. But when Anne started real-life Brad Pitt with jewelry designer Inez de Ramon, her dream bubble burst. Devastated, she reported the scam to the police and checked herself into a clinic for severe depression. Anne is far from the only victim of Brad Pitt's scams. Just last year, a similar ruse targeting Spanish women ended with 5 arrests, from WhatsApp to social media fans pages. These men were always on the lookout for vulnerable women. Now, according to reports, these women lost over $340,000. Later, the police successfully recovered some part of the stolen funds. These scammers, armed with AI tools and social media sleuthing skills, have turned Hollywood fandom into a lucrative hunting ground. Anne's story serves as a cautionary tale for anyone tempted to believe that Hollywood royalty might be lurking in their DMs. As for Anne, here's hoping justice and maybe a refund prevails. Meanwhile, the rest of us will stick around admiring Brad Pitt from the safety of our screens. No wiring of funds required. And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.